Hello there, welcome to the News at 7, where we get to the heart of the day's stories and communities across Scotland. Tonight, the MSP Colin Smith appears in court accused of possessing indecent images of children and voyeurism. Angry scenes in Aberdeen as homeowners confront politicians over potentially dangerous concrete. Also tonight, parents of premature babies oppose plans to centralise Scotland's neonatal intensive care units. And a campaign tees off to save Scotland's public golf courses. And we'll also have all the sport too with Sheila. What's up?
Well, ahead of a big night of European action for Celtic, Rangers and Aberdeen tomorrow, we'll hear from Brendan Rodgers, Danny Rule and Jimmy Tilley.
Hi, I'm Laura McKeever. Welcome to the News at 7. The former Scottish Labour MSP Colin Smith has appeared in court charged with possessing indecent images of children and voyeurism. The 52-year-old appeared in private at Dumfries Sheriff Court for the first time this afternoon. Katie Hunter has more.
Colin Smith arrived at Dumfries Sheriff Court at around 11:30 this morning. He appeared in front of a sheriff in private. The 52-year-old has been charged under the Sexual Offences Scotland Act with voyeurism and under the Civic Government Scotland Act with possessing indecent photographs of children. He entered no plea and was granted bail. Colin Smith has been an MSP for South Scotland since 2016. He was suspended by Scottish Labour in August and had his Scottish Parliament pass revoked. There are legal restrictions on what can be said at this point. In a statement, a spokesperson for Scotland's Prosecution Service said anyone publishing items about active cases is advised to exercise caution, as material must not be commentary or analysis of evidence, witnesses or accused. Contempt of court carries penalties of up to 2 years in prison and/or an unlimited fine. No date has been set for Colin Smith's next court appearance. Katie Hunter reporting Scotland, Dumfries.
There were angry scenes in Aberdeen today after the Housing Minister met people whose homes are affected by potentially dangerous concrete known as RAC. More than 500 homes in the Torry area are set to be demolished. Their owners want clarity over how £10 million of Scottish Government cash will be spent to support them. Rebecca Curran has more.
Today's meeting was private. Only 10 residents were permitted to attend, and many said they felt deflated after it. While they said they feel Mary McCallan, the Housing Secretary, listened to their concerns, they feel they didn't get the clarity they were looking for from Aberdeen City Council over how £10 million of Scottish Government funding will be spent and if any of it will come to them. And there were scenes of anger when the local authority's co-leaders, Councillor Christian Allard and Ian Ewell, left the meeting.
But we didn't want our houses demolished. So why are we having to pay that money to get the houses demolished?
It's a voluntary process.
Right.
You don't need to do it.
Voluntary. Not when your health is infected. It was either my house, my job or my health. Yes, exactly. I had to pick which. So it's not voluntary.
No, it's not.
Could you tell me how much roofs is filling in the last two and a half years?
Simple. It's coercion.
Aberdeen City Council wants to buy the privately owned homes, around 138 of them, through voluntary acquisition. But there have been disputes about the valuations, with some residents saying there'll be thousands of pounds out of pocket. The Scottish Government has offered the cash in a funding agreement, which it says could help the council find the money elsewhere in its budget for what it calls RAC remediation. They say they will get the money in weeks, not months. But residents feel they are left with more questions than answers over how it will be spent. Rebecca Curran, reporting Scotland, Aberdeen.
Well, Rebecca caught up with Aberdeen City Council co-leader Christian Allard, who you saw there, and she asked him whether plans could involve paying money directly to homeowners.
Both sets of officials are working together to know exactly what the possibilities, the realm of possibility can be done.
Though? Is it an option?
The option will be there at council in a few weeks' time, and then I won't decide for it. My co-leader won't decide for it.
Would you like to see it going directly to these householders who say they are stuck, who say they are tens of thousands of pounds?
So what you're asking me is to rob Paul to pay Peter or rob Peter to pay Paul. It means that, okay, let's increase our tenants as much as possible. Not of that money will go to them, but we're going to compensate people who we don't own their house, who own their house outright. I can't do that.
I'm not going to tell them I can do something that I can't. The decision on what to do with it is now for the council, but I have also made very clear my expectation that those decisions are made in really close consultation with those who've been affected by this, because my desire, and most of all the desire of the people whose lives this is currently affecting, is to see this put behind them.
Next tonight, parents of premature babies are calling for a rethink of plans to centralise Scotland's neonatal intensive care units. More than 20,000 people have signed a petition against the proposals to reduce the number of facilities treating the sickest babies from 8 to 3. The other 5 hospitals, including Ninewells and Dundee, will continue to operate as local neonatal units. The Scottish Government says the approach is based on strong clinical evidence, but not everyone's convinced, including Megan Scott, whose son Charlie was born 10 weeks early and spent 70 days in the ICU at Ninewells.
By the time Charlie was even born, I was already quite traumatised by what had already happened. To already be at that stage of being at breaking point, and then suddenly you're met with a very sick, very preterm, really unwell baby, and the possibility of being transported to a different city, no support, I don't think we would have got through as well as what we did. Families aren't going to be strong enough to actually cope with that level of change.
Well, earlier I spoke to Josie Anderson, who's from the premature baby charity Bliss. Bliss supports this reconfiguration of neonatal services, saying it will ensure the sickest babies have access to the care most suited to their needs. I asked Josie what the clinical evidence the changes were based on.
There's really strong research evidence that the neonatal intensive care units, which see a high volume of babies, have a high volume of intensive care days, and have a high volume of respiratory care days, those babies tend to have a better chance of survival, better chance of long-term outcomes. And the population that we're talking about is really quite specific. So it's those babies who are born before 27 weeks and babies who are under 800 grams or who are extremely sick, who might have quite a rare or complicated condition. Those are the babies that you really want to be delivered at a neonatal intensive care unit, which is large and has a high volume of intensive care days and ventilator days.
We've also heard lots of very emotive stories from parents who have relied on this kind of care, and they've talked about the importance as well of being close to home, of having friends and family closely around you. So the small number of people affected by this will also have that concern in their minds. What would your message be to them about the possibility of having to be further away from your support system?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a concern that I think everyone who has a baby in neonatal care shares. Even without services being reorganised, separation is sadly a really common feature of the neonatal experience. Neonatal units typically aren't well set up to keep families together with their baby. And so what we would really like to see is the Scottish Government investing and resourcing through this final kind of stages of implementation to make sure that families do have the best support package available possible. It's inevitable that for those small number of families that have to travel further, it is going to be really difficult. I think it's important to be clear that the intention is not that babies will stay further away from home for the entirety of their stay. As those babies become better and more stable, then they'll be repatriated back to their more local hospital. But for that period of time when they are further away, there needs to be better support in place, particularly around accommodation and facilities on the neonatal unit. In place in Scotland already is an excellent the Young Patients Family Fund. However, this could be improved. We've heard from families ourselves who don't really know it exists until they've been on the unit for a little while and have missed out on support. We've heard from families it can be quite complicated to get the support they need from it. It can be quite clunky. So there's real opportunity for the Scottish Government to work with families to pin down what that support should look like and get that in place.
Josie, thank you very much indeed for your time today. OK, let's get a roundup now. The story's making the BBC News website in Scotland. And a man who tried to use a metal detector to find a hidden gun has pled guilty in the first case connected to a gangland feud in central Scotland. The family of Sheku Bayo said they feel totally betrayed by the criminal justice system after the resignation of the chair of the inquiry into his death. And several vehicles have been badly damaged in an incident on a ferry crossing the Pentland Firth. A lorry shed its load and a large piece of machinery landed on vehicles parked nearby. For more information on all of these stories, you can scan the QR code. It's there for you on the screen now. It'll take you to the BBC Scotland News website, where there is plenty more for you, including a story about plans to build Scotland's first new broch in 2,000 years. Now, a row has broken out over who will pay the cost of policing Donald Trump and his Vice President JD Vance's visits to Scotland this summer. BBC Scotland understands the Scottish Government's asked for almost £25 million of spending to be refunded by the UK Treasury. But UK ministers say it was a private visit, so the Scottish Government has to cover the bill. Earlier, I spoke to our political correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart and asked why it's all become so complicated.
Yeah, so to make sense of this, you have to go back actually to 2018 when Donald Trump visited. And at that point, the UK government did contribute towards the policing costs. But the argument that the UK government is making this time round is there actually wasn't an official visit for Donald Trump to come like there was in 2018, and therefore it's for the Scottish Government to deal with the policing aspect of stuff. They're not on the hook for the bill. Now, where the Scottish Government are getting very angry about this is that they're pointing out that, yes, Donald Trump did come in and play golf. There was a personal aspect to this trip. He spent time at his courses, both in Ayrshire and Aberdeenshire. But he was greeted off the plane by the Secretary of State for Scotland, a UK Government Minister. Keir Starmer was up at Turnberry with Donald Trump. They gave a press conference together where they talked about policy. They then flew on Air Force One together to Aberdeenshire. It wasn't just UK government ministers meeting with them. John Swinney was also in Aberdeenshire, attended dinner with Donald Trump, had a meeting with them to talk about whisky tariffs the next day. So the argument from Scottish ministers is when you take all this in the round, of course there was loads of official business, there was politics going on. So to try and paint this as just a personal visit doesn't make sense. They believe that the UK government should be helping out with the costs of this visit, which are not insignificant. We're talking about £21 million for just the Donald Trump visit. That doesn't even take into account the Vice President's visit, which also included him spending some time in Scotland. The UK government are saying because of that lack of official visit, that means that it's a Scottish-only issue, and the Scottish government's got to front up that bill for the policing.
And that policing, as you've just said, multi-million pounds worth of policing. Why does it cost so much?
Yeah, this is much more than it cost previously to host Donald Trump in Scotland. And my understanding is basically that comes down to how last minute the organisation for this was. It was very late on when Donald Trump confirmed he was coming. In order to get enough police here, the Scottish Government had to rely on what's known as mutual aid. That means forces from across the UK coming to help an area of the country that's got a big event going on. That's not cheap because those officers can be paid more. They have to get put up in hotels, things like their food cost money, etc., etc. It was also so late on that many officers had to have their shifts changed. There's a cost implication to that. And because it was a visit that didn't just take place in one location, Donald Trump was at Turnberry, but then he flew to Aberdeenshire to his course in Balmedy. So you had a force stretched across the country of Scotland, which came with massive financial implications. And there are concerns being voiced in the police community in Scotland about how exactly they fill the hole in the budget that 20 million plus cost of policing this visit will ultimately have to be filled, given that that's got to come out of day-to-day policing if the Treasury doesn't step in.
Possibly not the end of this yet, but thank you for now, David. Well, you've been giving us some of your views on this story. Robert from Irvine says the UK and Scottish Government should split the bill 50-50. Meanwhile, Anne, also from Irvine, thinks Donald Trump should pay the bill himself. And another member of the audience questions why there wasn't a plan in place to pay the bill, saying there should be a clear plan and agreement of payment in place. Well, talking of golf, campaigners are fighting for the future of Scotland's remaining publicly owned golf courses after figures showed that they've declined by around 10% since 2020. Just 51 municipal courses are left out of 500. Michael McEwen is the editor of Bunkered magazine, which is behind the drive to keep them, and he's concerned more will be axed.
Public golf courses are facing threat of closure, and when some of them do close, all that has the effect of doing is shrinking the game. You know, golf's in a good place just now in terms of global participation. Coming out of COVID, we've got a real participation boom. But instead of, you know, applauding ourselves and patting each other on the back for what a great job we've done, just now we should be taking a view for what that might look like 10, 15, 20 years from now. And if public golf courses continue to close at the rate that they have been closing over the last few years, then the game will undoubtedly shrink. And it will end up becoming the thing that so many people mistake it for being. It'll reinforce a misconception people have of the sport, which is that it's for rich people only. It's not, but closing public golf courses won't make that message any easier to deliver.
We also know, though, don't we, that council budgets are under so much pressure. Does it become an easy thing to save money on by not supporting these courses anymore?
Undoubtedly, you know, golf courses, I believe, are low-hanging fruit. I think that, you know, they occupy big pieces of land. They're expensive to maintain. There's no doubt about that. And what I really don't want this campaign to become is golf courses or libraries, golf courses or swimming pools, golf courses or weekly bin collections. Instead, we want to use this campaign to demonstrate the full value of golf. Value can take many forms. You can consider, for example, the physical benefits that you get from the game, the health and mental health benefits, the environmental benefits, but of course the one that's most compelling to everyone is the financial benefits. I firmly believe that a lot of local authorities aren't running golf courses that they have most profitably. They're leaving a lot of money on the table. Don't get me wrong, a lot of authorities are doing a fantastic job, but some of them are maybe missing opportunities. So when it comes time for budgets to be reassessed and for that, we've all heard it, the black hole to be plugged, then they look at golf courses and go, that's costing a lot of money, it's not making as much. Instead, we want to turn that thinking on its head. We want to show that golf can be valuable and that it can, rather than take away from the public purse, it can add to the public purse.
Well, Michael, really good to shine a light on it today with you. Thanks so much for joining us on News at 7. Still to come, we've got the weather with Kirstine and also borrowing a light lamp from the library to combat winter blues. First, though, time to get the sport with Sheila.
Thanks, Laura. Yes, European football is just around the corner again, and Celtic will be hoping to use their Europa League match against Sturm Graz to get back on track, with only one win in their last 5 games. Sunday's clash with Dundee was one to forget. Another fan protest delayed the game before Dundee went on to win 2-0. Brendan Rodgers says his players need to work harder on the basics to get results.
Before you think of talent, you know, you have to head the ball, you have to run, you have to press, you have to do all these things before then your decision making in the game. So that needs to be better. All the things that aren't about talent is what we need to be better at, and then from that, then you should then show your talents.
Well, Danny Röhl is barely in the door at Ibrox and he's already preparing for a crucial match. They take on Brann in Norway tomorrow night in the Europa League. They've yet to win a point in this year's competition, losing their first 2 matches to Genk and Sturm Graz.
In the last 2 training sessions were very well. The team is very listening. They try to follow what we want to do. It's not normal that you start straight with a European game in a new club, but I'm really looking forward for this. I know tomorrow we will not make the perfect game, but it's not necessary to have the perfect game. It's important to have a successful game tomorrow, and I think with this mindset we should go tomorrow in this game.
And in the Conference League, Aberdeen are in Athens for their match against AEK. It's coming off the back of consecutive victories against Dundee and St Mirren, their first wins of the season after a dreadful start for the Scottish Cup winners. So can they do it in Greece?
I think we have created a dynamic now that we are ready for the game tomorrow. I really believe so, and you want to come up against really good teams and put ourselves under this pressure to challenge and show that we are good and make a good performance tomorrow in this environment. I think it's the best way for us, and it's important for us to be strong in all competitions, so we're really looking forward to the game tomorrow.
Well, BBC Scotland sport pundit Michael Stewart is in Athens for Aberdeen's match. Earlier, I asked him what those back-to-back league wins might mean for tomorrow.
All you need to do is look back a few weeks ago against Shakhtar when Aberdeen were, as low as you could expect, really, after the run of form they'd been on. But they put in a very, very good performance against a strong opponent. So, as you've quite rightly mentioned, obviously things have started to turn around for Aberdeen and Jimmy Talleen. So I'm expecting a performance with a bit more belief and confidence, and hopefully a performance that can get some points for Aberdeen, because it would stand them in good stead with 2 games coming up that they'll feel are winnable. And obviously from a Scottish football perspective, every point really counts for the coefficient at the moment.
Celtic at home tomorrow against Sturm Graz. It's been a really strange time for them recently. Just 1 win in 5. Brendan Rodgers' comments about the Honda Civic at the weekend attracted a bit of attention. He said today that he's never felt more motivated at Celtic. What have you made of it all?
Well, it just shows you what a bit of pressure does, because I think on reflection, it's probably comments that Brendan Rodgers himself would feel like he shouldn't have made, because as the Celtic manager, there's going to be great scrutiny on everything that's said, which then leads on to him coming out saying that he's never been more motivated, because there is a little bit of pressure that's surrounding Brendan Rodgers, Celtic in general, and the European campaign is desperately waiting for them to ignite and really make an impact in the Europa League.
Finally, for Rangers, the new man is in the door at last. His first game tomorrow night against Brann. It's all about wins now, isn't it, for him?
Well, in a similar vein to obviously what we're talking about with Aberdeen and Celtic, but then specifically about Rangers and Danny Röhl, he needs to get wins to try to build momentum and to build the belief, not just amongst the team and the staff, but also amongst the supporters, because as much as there's obviously been positive comments about people that have worked with Danny Röhl in the past, there is still going to be scrutiny and a certain degree of apprehension. This is a job that has, chewed up and spat out a number of managers in the recent past, and it's going to be very, very intriguing to see how the German handles this over the next couple of months in particular.
Michael Stewart in sunny Athens there. Lucky him.
Lucky him. 3
big games tomorrow, Laura, and you can follow them all on the BBC Sports Scotland website.
We will. Sheila, thank you so much. And the clocks roll back this weekend, in case you had forgotten, and the nights are already drawing in, aren't they? Which, for many, during the winter months can lead to low mood. But a project to help people with what's known as seasonal affective disorder is launching in Orkney, where residents can borrow a so-called Wintering Well box from their library containing a therapeutic light lamp. The scheme's already been hailed a success in East Dunbartonshire, and I caught up earlier with Professor Hester Parr from the University of Glasgow, which is behind the scheme.
Most of us probably feel a bit low in the winter when the bad weather comes and the clocks go back. We all notice it. But for a proportion of the population, that's a really profound shift. And they may suffer not only low mood in winter, but something called seasonal affective disorder, which itself is a little bit of a contested category, but people generally know what we mean by when we say that. And it means that you perhaps are more sluggish in the winter. It's difficult to get out of bed. You may find actually that all of your life is somehow affected. For a proportion of the population, this is a really profound experience. It's harder to socialise, to get out there and be the person you want to be at work. It affects all areas of our lives. And it's related to not getting enough natural light. And obviously that's what's diminished in winter, and that's where we're making an intervention with this research.
This weekend the clocks are changing, so we all know this is coming, this having less daylight every day. So tell us more about these light boxes and what they will do, what they will do to help people feel better.
Well, we're working with public libraries in Scotland, and we have put together what's called a Wintering Well box, which includes a therapeutic sad lamp, which people can use first thing in the morning for around 30 minutes. But adjacent to that, we've got some research-led resources, which is a book guide to wintering well, little tips and tactics that you can build into your everyday life that really encourage people not only to use the light box, but to get out in natural light, because that's what we need to do more of in Scotland. Scotland. We tend to curry in when the winter comes, and we really need to be out there because there's still a lot of natural light around, and that is what has the biggest impact on our mental health. And the Wintering Well boxes, which are loaned through public libraries, are ways to encourage us to build new light routines into our everyday life.
So they're going to Orkney, aren't they? But they've already been used in other areas down here as Eastern Bartonshire.
We launched in Eastern Bartonshire last year and we had huge success, a lot of positive feedback from the library community. All our loans went out and were on repeated loans. And so we evaluated the resource with those people who used them, and we got great feedback. And so what we're doing is moving out into other parts of Scotland. And we chose Orkney because obviously it's a very northerly location, and those librarians and community link workers actually in Orkney are really enthusiastic about getting new resources to help with poor mental health in Orkney and the adjacent islands. And so the scheme running out from Orkney is going to make a real difference to those people in those locations where the weather is particularly bad and there's perhaps difficulty in getting a kind of spread of mental health intervention.
So there's a real belief, just quickly, that these work, that they make a difference for people.
Absolutely, and it's a non-medical route too, so a pill can't always cure SAD. We need other sorts of interventions, and this is what this public library loan system does, is it gets the information out there that people can make a difference in a non-clinical way, and so people can take control of their own mental health.
Professor Hester Parr speaking to me there. And if you need any support with mental health, details are available at bbc.co.uk/actionline, or you can call for free at any time to hear recorded information on 08000 155 998. OK, time for the weather forecast now. Kirstine is here and it feels like it's getting colder, Kirstine.
It is going to get colder over the next few days, but the weather's been reasonably settled today. We've had some spells of brightness and sunshine. We've also had some areas of cloud and just a few showers around in places. But all told, really not too bad a day at all, not too bad an autumn day. But as Laura says, yes, it is getting colder, and I'm just about to show you the reason why. So we're going to see an area of low pressure pulling eastwards, and that's all key to this northerly wind. So yes, this area of low pressure named Storm Benjamin, moving through parts of England and Wales tomorrow, and then moving into the North Sea. An occlusion on it bringing some rain to eastern Scotland, and as that low pulls away, we open the floodgates to a cold northerly wind. So tomorrow we start the day with some brightness and sunshine across western and northwestern areas. Some showers moving southwards through the west coast as we go through the day tomorrow. And I think across the Northern Isles tomorrow afternoon there will be some areas of cloud and just the odd shower. Across eastern Scotland generally a good deal of cloud with some showers. Some of them will be heavy at times, accompanied by a freshening northwesterly wind. But across the spine of the country, so to speak, and for many western areas it's a fine afternoon of weather, just a scattering of showers, but the temperature coming down a little. And those showers continue tomorrow night across eastern Scotland as well as western coastal areas. Chilly again for many too. Now Friday and Saturday, there's that area of low pressure Storm Benjamin. It's still lurking in the North Sea, that occlusion still coming into eastern Scotland. So Friday is looking like an unsettled day. A lot of rain in the forecast across eastern and northeastern areas. In the west there will be some showers around, and the winds will really ramp up during the afternoon and evening, touching 60 miles per hour across the Northern Isles, and the temperature coming down again as that northerly wind sets in. Saturday again, spells of rain for the Northern Isles and the northeast. Some showers feeding in on that brisk northerly wind, turning wintry on the hills and high ground. And then for Sunday, well, we have rain pushing in through Northern Ireland and western Scotland during the afternoon. As it meets cold air, it'll briefly turn wintry over the hills and high ground. So a cold weekend in prospect. Into the beginning of next week, though, we're back to a northwesterly wind, some sunshine and some showers. Laura.
I think you said wintry twice there.
Yeah. A brief wintry spell, though.
We're ready. Thanks, Kirstine. And thank you so much for your company tonight. Amy Irons is here tomorrow night at 7. But from all of us here, good night for now. Bye-bye.